Right now, I want to look at the picture across the country and how will the government's new ideas for planning reform change things. Ben Southwood is the head of housing, transport and urban space at the centre-right think tank Policy Exchange. Good afternoon, Ben.
Good afternoon.
I guess, first of all, how does the Manchester experience, what we're just talking about there, translate nationally?
So Manchester is, from the government's perspective, there's a desire to rebalance economic activity outside of London. And outside of London, Oxford and Cambridge and the places which are seeing the most economic growth, although, of course, over the last 10 years, there's been some around the country. Some of what that looks like is lots of that wealth flowing into places like Manchester, Leeds and Birmingham that are doing pretty well as well. And so to some extent, the problem we're seeing here is part of when you see lots of economic activity, when you see somewhere grow very quickly, you start to see lots of problems, even though on balance, maybe it's a good problem to have. And on balance, there's lots of improvements happening and you've got more money for all sorts of things that you want to do, from buses to health to social care to hopefully affordable housing as well. You necessarily have dislocation when something quick happens like that. But in terms of the picture around the country, there's a desire to rebalance, and Manchester growing quickly, and hopefully Greater Manchester and surrounding areas as well growing quickly is part of that.
The government, Ben, have just published a planning white paper, the first move in an overhaul of the system. What are the plans for city centre regeneration?
So the biggest change in focus is that under the new system, there's a goal. Well, I'd say there were three big things we should think about in the planning white paper. One is that there's a goal to build lots more houses and more flats and more of all types, housing types and tenure types, both for renters and for homeowners and also for social housing. And the goal there is to basically bring down the cost of those things, especially in places like Manchester where the rents are rising or where rents are high and are pricing some people out, or where house prices are high and some people can't afford to buy a house. So a key goal behind that is that. A second policy, a second part of it, which I think will resonate with people in Manchester, is that there's a desire to give local people more control over the design of buildings that go up. So the way we currently have it, once a building gets through, you might be able to try and stop the building and try and stop the planning application get approved. But when it does get through, the design is not a core part of what you ever have control over. And so they're trying to give people control in advance. And I know that some buildings that have been put up recently, some of the more famous ones, haven't necessarily been popular with local residents, the way they affected the skyline or their own views and stuff like that. So that's the second part of the policy. But the third part of the policy that I think is most exciting is giving local people more control over what the development on their own, say, street that they're on. So one of the policies in the white paper was locals defined at the level of one street can decide whether all of them could get a right to extend their property, which obviously they don't have to use if they wanted to. But those are the three things I would say come through most to me, and they all, I would say, affect Manchester like they affect the rest of the country.
Thank you, Ben.